Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 65, Couples in Recovery, Part 2. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Welcome back. And again, today I have Heidi and Matthew with me. They've agreed to come on and talk about their experience as a couple that's in recovery for sexual addiction. And last week, they discussed what it was like in the beginning about how the addiction occurred, how it grew, what happened in their relationship to get them on this path to recovery. And when we left off, Heidi was talking about almost the day-to-day experience of working hard to make this recovery more natural. And like I've said in the past, recovery from addiction is never going to be second nature. It's always going to be something you have to think about. Now, not doing the thing may not be something you have to always think about, but how you approach your life and deal with life on life's terms on a daily basis is something you need to constantly think about. Because if you don't, you might find yourself rolling back into your addictions. So, Heidi, I'd like to pick up again with you today on that day-to-day struggle, that day-to-day experience of being in recovery.
Sure, thank you. I surround myself in recovery, and I've found that I'm an alcoholic addict. I attend AA meetings, but I also have women who've been placed in my life where I get to work with them. Two women in particular have asked me to work with them in CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous. They help me continue to learn, to support my work in valuing myself, in learning that nobody can abandon me. I can abandon myself. Yes. You used to say that, and I did not get it. I felt like the world was going to leave me. And if I wasn't right, if I wasn't good enough, if I didn't say yes and make people happy, I would lose everything. And it was all that black and white, but mostly black, living in a sense of fear.
Sure.
And it has been a practice, because it wasn't just Matthew that I was afraid to say no to. It was, his daughter was a tyrant, but I allowed her to be. And it turned out slowly but surely, it's a practice, right? I had to start with little no's, right? I had to start with little standing up for myself, see that went okay, and then do a little more. And I had days where where I didn't feel like I mattered enough to be able to say no. And then I would kind of shrink down and be very small again. And, I mentioned it before, but you taught me how to do a reality check, and it sounds silly, Okay, I'm Heidi. I'm a 60-year-old woman who's had to, just to go through facts of my life that I matter. And to ground myself in the here and now. And that's a tool that I use today, because, I can still on a bad day feel like like I shouldn't have, my voice doesn't matter.
Like you're pretty worthless? Yeah, that's shame attack material. Yes.
Shame is a huge thing, I think, for I don't know. I can't generalize about all women but.
Oh, I think you can on that, especially about our bodies, right?
Our life.
And our worth.
It runs, it can run my life if I don't keep my awareness up of what my feelings are and where I'm coming from. That scared little girl comes back. Occasionally the hostile teenager takes over.
I've seen both of those.
Yes.
Yes. They're pretty adorable. I don't think they serve you as an adult, right? I have them too. So, yeah.
I'm not convinced they come up in the adorable way that often. Usually they come up in the whiny, or really angry way. I prefer, to have the fun child in me come out once in a while, but that's a good thing. Anyway,
sure.
But that's the work, right? That's
the work.
Finding and cherishing, and gosh, I cringe at even saying these words, that inner child,
Yeah, I understand.
But, today, thanks to the work, I know that I have merit today, but also that little girl had merit. And I start to feel really shaky or, tools that you taught me, that I still cringe at talking about, but I get to hug that little girl and say, it's going to be okay. I've got this. I'm an adult. Yeah. I'm in charge. We're going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm. And that helps you being your adult.
It does.
Because those parts of you are real. They ran your life. The inability to say no, the inability to stand up for yourself, the inability to say what you need or wanted. It's like whether or not anybody sees that as a inner child or not, it doesn't matter. What happens is that if you experience that, she's in there and she is not going to rest until you, as an adult person, can start being in control, right? Yeah. So we have those. And like you said, it is a practice. And, I've talked about that before, where this process of being weller from your childhood trauma is a practice, much like any other practice. So, and I have to say that I've seen that practice with you, and it's quite remarkable. So,
thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. I accept the compliment today. Thanks.
And isn't that nice? So Matthew, can you describe that process for you, that practice, and how you...
One of the things is that the practice has evolved with my recovery, because quite often what I did, a year ago is not enough. And that's kind of a wonderful thing.
In what way?
What'll happen is that I'll reach some stagnation in my recovery, where what I'm doing day in, day out, it's like, it's not quite fulfilling me. And it's like, okay, there's something missing. And when there's something missing, I have to, with curiosity, go and try new things that, my first reaction to new things is, no, I don't want to do that. I don't need that. I'd rather go watch TV. And, but dissatisfaction is something, it's me, it's something inside me saying that I need to grow. And
right. And, let me ask you this. So, like when Heidi was talking about those little girls, do you have those little boys, and are those little boys active when that's happening?
That's an interesting question. So I really, the first time I heard any of that stuff, I thought that was the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard. The whole idea of inner child, it was like, please. And, and my first encounter with you, I walked into your office and in a small frame, there was a piece of paper with 8 words on it and an symbol in the middle. And those 8 words were joy, pain, sad. I got this. Joy, pain, sad, lonely, shame, guilt, fear, anger. Those were them. And I
Nice.
listened to those and I looked at those and I said, what's that? And you said, well, those are the 8 basic emotions of human existence. And I said, well, see, no wonder why I hate feelings. There's one good one and the rest suck.
That's right. You said that. You're right.
I think you probably heard that from men before because it didn't surprise you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you said, yeah, no. There's these wonderful gifts that come with each one of them. And later on, I heard you give a talk to a room full of people where you went into depth about the gifts of emotions. And so one of the things that I did in my early sex addiction recovery, was to write all those down and the gifts. So the gift of joy, well, that's the gift. The gift of pain is pain. Pain gives us growth. The gift of sadness is grief to resolution. The gift of loneliness is the impetus to reach out to others. These were my 2 favorite because these are the ones that plague me the most. The gift of shame is humility, and the gift of guilt is integrity. And I love that. Like that's really helped create a new life for me. The gift of fear is self-care, another great one. The gift of anger is power. So I write those down, and then I looked at what in the day did I feel those feelings, which feelings, kind of what was happening. And I did that for some months. And when I did that, all of a sudden what that did was that created an awareness of those feelings that I'd never had before. And of course, this was after I had gotten into some, into the abstinence part of my recovery. I was laying down new neural pathways, and I was building those pathways with this kind of work. And now that was a huge deal. Like it started getting me in touch with my emotions. I remember another time when we were talking about something in your office and, you were like, I can't remember what it was. You were talking about some kind of awareness, some kind of, and I said,
yeah, being the therapist I am.
I was talking about how I had, I had some empathy for, what, Heidi was going through, and you just kind of shook your head. You said, no, you don't. And I said, what do you mean? Of course I do, and he said, no, you're a sex addict. And by definition, you're a narcissist, and narcissists are incapable of empathy. And I was just like, oh, because I knew that it was the truth, right? Once in a while you hear the truth and you feel it. And I understood that was the truth. And as these emotions have awakened, I have been given the gift of empathy. And the gift of empathy is a two-edged sword, because having empathy, like I really have empathy. And I see things that really hurt. I see things in the world that really hurt today. Injustice, especially injustice to women. Like it really hurts. It's terrible what we've done as a society to objectify women and to make that sell everything in the world. And and how these little girls, I could go on and on and on about it, but it's the whole idea of the Kardashians, selling this and selling that. And there's 100 million little girls who look up to them somehow and dream of being a great social influencer on whatever social app it is. And that like somehow being famous for being famous is an ultimate goal. And,
and they objectify themselves, right?
like,
Yes.
and it's a tragedy. You know, I grew up in a household that actually, you know, it valued intellect and creativity above all else. You know, that really was, you know, the message I got. So, you know, I don't know. I'm just really glad to sort of be in lockstep with those early values that were tried, you know, that were attempted to be given to me. And with Heidi, you know, I mean, Heidi and I grew up together in Chicago. I knew her when she was 14 years old. I was 16. We actually had a little dance together. I think I was 20 and she was 18. And we went out together for a month. And that was a long-term relationship for me when I was 20 years old, right?
Sure, I believe it. Yeah.
And we were addicts misbehaving together.
Yeah.
It was a good thing we separated.
I mean, you know, but
yes, you might be dead by now if you hadn't.
Yeah, really. But so because she was raised in the same time, in the same social, political influence, we have so much in common for a background. Our value system really is, you know, has a commonality which makes liking her so easy. And I have an amazing admiration for her, like the success that she had raising her two children. They are these wonderful young women who have, you know, a fantastic sense of kindness, of duty. I mean, they work towards helping others. Like that's their focus, and they're incredibly intelligent and just.
And I just want to take a minute here for our listeners to remember that initially, when you were talking about yourself, Matthew, you were talking about being this guy who was entitled to anything, anyhow, any way he wanted, right? That you had prostitutes, you were looking at images of women on TV, or doing all kinds of, it's like you just went out in the world and took what you wanted, and that was it, right? And then when you start talking about being in recovery and experiencing that sense of empathy, and you kind of went off on a little, like, the way that our society objectifies women, how women end up objectifying themselves in order to be acceptable. And when you first start doing that, and talking about that empathy, it's like the difference is stark. It's between night and day. And I remember when you started to feel that and you wrestled with that. You didn't want it. It hurt, right? Pain hurts. Hello, people, right?
Yeah.
And I saw tears for the first time that were not tears of anger. Like, you can't make me do this. It was more like tears of pain and sadness for looking around and seeing the pain and sadness. And I just want to say that, I'll just step out here on a limb and say that if individual people were able to feel that, it would change everything.
Yeah. I mean, right? You've given me, a gift it's so huge, right? What I can tell you, and this is a tough one, but, I engaged in prostitution. I haven't made a secret of that. But today what I see is that prostitution is sort of an ultimate reality of the subjugation of another human being. I mean, it really is a form of slavery. And yes, I took part in it. I took part in that. I minimized it. I rationalized it as something that was okay, like the world's oldest profession. It's a business arrangement that's mutually beneficial. It's a load of crap. I mean, I engaged in the subjugation and victimization. What I was going to say, the dehumanization, the objectification and dehumanization of another human being. And to have been a part of that is going to be, it's something that I feel shame and guilt about. And you were kind enough in a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago to say, aren't you glad that you're not that person today? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, I am so glad that I am not that person today. Like, I have so much joy and love in my heart today. And I look back on who I was, and but that goes back to those inner children. I can take that back to the inner children because my first go round with your legacy, I got to know the adaptive adult, and I got to see why that came, the reaction that came out of, being ignored, being, just simply being looked over, give this little one something so that we can get on with our lives. And I raged, and my adaptive adult was just a manifestations of my rage, and the drugs and alcohol cooled the rage and lit these other desires, like, let's fill the hole. And it was the second time I went through legacy that I got to know the wounded child. And I kind of hate you for that one, Donna.
Thank you.
The wounded child comes up today. Like my adult doesn't come up a lot. Like, and when it does, I know what it is, and I stop myself. The wounded child comes up and controls me today, because I got rid of that thing as soon as I could. I buried that as deep as I could, and it hurt. It just hurts. It hurts, and it's more likely to kind of derail me today than my adaptive adult, and I'm really surprised to say that, but that's the truth.
So are you able to wrap your arms around that little guy and let him know he's safe?
I I forget to sometimes.
Sure.
And Heidi.
Yeah. Well,
because
we're not
reminds
perfect,
me
right?
too. Like, with love and kindness, she reminds me that, that little one deserves it, and
which is really a statement about how far your marriage has come. Because if Heidi would have tried to do that 6 years ago, she's laughing, right? It's like, what?
There are still days where I feel like whatever advice I have to offer, he would hear much better from you or John or any guy. And they say the same thing I've just said, and he comes back and says, I heard this great thing. But it's true. I think we support each other in our recovery today, and that's because of a lot, mostly because of the training that we got with you. We learned, you taught us to do feelings check-ins. We don't do them every day anymore. But every once in a while, I'll look at him and say, okay, I don't know you right now. What's going on? And he will launch into a check-in where he goes through each of those emotions and tells me where things are and where he is today. It's one of the many tools that we have.
Would you describe that as building intimacy?
And today I trust, and trust is a big thing for me. It's something that was shattered many times. And it's something that we really had to work to build. There were days where I'd be like, I don't trust you. I don't, I can't, you misspoke, you lied to me, whatever it is, I that's in my head that happened. And sometimes it's real, sometimes not. And he would be really hurt that I should trust him 100%. He's done work. And it's like, nope, it's not like that. It's a slow thing. It's a gradual thing. But we were able to do that, to give it the time to keep working at showing up and being trustworthy. And yeah, I think that we've learned, I've also learned that I can share my feelings with him, even if they're things he doesn't want to hear. If I am first in my adult and I make it clear that they are my feelings about me, and that he's in his adult, right? And we have tools and conversations about, hey, I have something tough to discuss. Are you in a place where you can hear me? This is about me. And I trust that he can hear me, and not always perfectly, but we can communicate in a way that we never could. And today he's my best friend. I trust him with whatever is going on with me. And I know he has my back, and I did not. He used to say, "I got your back," but and there was a but.
Yeah, right.
But today he does have my back. We don't always agree on everything, but we can talk about it.
No. Yeah. And so, how about you, Matthew?
I mean, Heidi is like, it's okay. I'm getting choked up here. There's a phrase. It's like I really married out of my league, and I believe that. I don't know how I got this chance. I've been married 3 times, and you can imagine what train wrecks my first 2 were, because
I kind of heard about it. Yeah.
But I've learned, I've gotten these tools, and a lot of it has to do with that desperation that comes from an addict when they hit their bottom. It's like, I will do anything. Sure. I can't do it. I don't know what to do. I am so screwed here, but I will do anything. And I found the teachers that made the difference. And, you're at sort of the top of the list, Donna. And I've had a handful along the way. And you gave me something on March 27th of 2018. You gave me a script, because I have these things that come up from time to time, either circumstances outside of my control, or I will do something, or Heidi will run across something, and she will get triggered. And sometimes the triggers have to do with, a lot of times triggers have to do with things that I did in the past. And sometimes there are other things that have other parts of her past, but they go into something, and she'll go into a place, and I can look at her and I can say, I know you're going through this because of my bad behavior. I am sorry. What can I do to support you? And that's something really, really true for, that's a gift that I can give my partner who is in recovery as an honor, and when I say that like from the bottom of my heart. And I get into an adult reality when I say that, because I know that I'm not that person today. Right.
Right.
So when I married her, I wrote a vow, and in the vow I said, I'm going to give you a home. It's always going to be your home, and you're going to feel safe with me. And I blew that up in the first year of marriage. And not on purpose. Because I'm an addict, and it was compulsive. It was beyond my control. And today, what I can tell you is that I have a home that that I maintain and love and support, and I'm a part of. That is our safe place. And it's as much as we have this wonderful space that we're sharing now that we really love. I mean, that's really a place in my heart and in her heart. I mean, like she knows that I'm her best friend and I've got her back. And that's just the truth. I mean, we have a fiercely loyal, strong relationship. I mean, just a bond it's crazy. I'm not alone. Like, I don't ever feel lonely today or alone, like, ever, She was just in California visiting
Sure.
her grandbaby for a week. I was there for 2 days, but there were 5 days where we weren't together. And there was never a moment where I was like maybe the very first night, I got a little lonely. I got a little this and that. And, and we FaceTimed each other for about an hour before we went to sleep,
Yeah. Yeah. And that is what intimacy is, right? You're best friends. You absolutely have each other's back. You're able to have empathy for one another when you see pain and sadness and fear and loneliness and all those emotions come up. And to be together on the journey. And, I really appreciate the two of you coming on the show. And I think your story is so profound that I just might ask you to come back again sometime. Because you really are just, your journey is so astounding. So, again, thank you for being here. And let me remind my audience that if you have questions or concerns or you want to reach out, you can definitely do that by emailing me at healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.